Deep in the San Juan Mountains of Colorado, winter does not arrive quietly. It kicks down the front door. Anna Higgins knew this better than anyone. At 72, the retired trauma nurse lived alone in a cedar log cabin 20 miles outside the town of Silverton. Her husband, David, had passed away from a sudden stroke a decade prior, and while her daughter Sarah constantly pleaded with her to move to the sunny suburbs of Phoenix, Anna refused to leave the mountain that held her best memories. It was mid-December of 2018 when the sky turned the color of bruised iron. Meteorologists on the crackling AM radio warned of a historic blizzard, predicting 3 feet of snow and temperatures plunging to 30 below zero. Anna spent the afternoon preparing, stacking seasoned oak near the hearth, filling the cast iron kettle, and ensuring her medical kit, a holdover from 30 years in an emergency room, was fully stocked. As twilight descended, the wind began to scream through the pines. Anna was locking the heavy deadbolt on her back door when she heard it. It wasn't the howl of the wind or the snap of a freezing branch. It was a low, guttural whimper, heavy with pain, coming from the direction of her woodshed. Grabbing her heavy flashlight and a lever-action Winchester rifle she kept for mountain lions, Anna pushed the door open. The cold hit her like a physical blow, instantly freezing the moisture in her nose. She trudged through the knee-deep drifts, the beam of her flashlight cutting through the swirling white chaos. A smear of crimson stained the pristine snow near the shed. It was a thick, dragging trail. Anna chambered around, her heart hammering against her ribs. As she rounded the corner of the wooden structure, the beam of her light fell upon a mound of dark fur half buried in the snow. It was a beast unlike anything she had ever seen. At first glance, she thought it was a timber wolf, but the proportions were entirely wrong. The creature was monstrously large, easily pushing 200 pounds, with a broad, mastiff-like skull and coarse, charcoal-gray fur that seemed to absorb the light. It was lying on its side, panting rapidly in shallow, jagged breaths. Anna kept her rifle raised. "Easy now," she whispered, her breath pluming in the air. The creature didn't snarl. It simply turned its massive head, pinning her with eyes the color of old amber. There was no feral panic in that gaze. Instead, Anna saw a chilling, piercing intelligence. It looked at the rifle, then down at its own flank, and finally back at Anna. A jagged, horrific tear ripped across its hindquarters, exposing muscle and bone. It wasn't an animal bite or a hunter's bullet wound. It looked like a deep mechanical laceration, as if the beast had torn itself free from heavy barbed wire or jagged metal fencing. Around its thick neck rested a heavy, matte black metallic collar adorned with a blinking green LED light and a series of stamped numbers. Logic dictated that Anna should go inside, lock the doors, and call the game warden in the morning. A wild predator in pain is the most dangerous thing on earth. But the trauma nurse in her saw a life slipping away. She lowered the rifle. "You're going to freeze out here," she murmured. Anna fetched a heavy canvas tarp from the shed. Moving with slow, deliberate calmness, she spread it near the creature. "Come on." On the tarp, to her absolute astonishment, the beast understood. Gritting its teeth with a low rumble that vibrated in Anna's chest, the massive animal dragged its bleeding body onto the canvas. With every ounce of strength she had left, Anna grabbed the brass grommets and hauled the beast across the snow, over the threshold, and into the warmth of her kitchen. The cabin smelled of pine smoke, wet fur, and copper. Anna locked the door and immediately went to work. She dragged the tarp near the roaring fireplace, then washed her hands with surgical scrub. When she approached the beast with a pair of shears and a bottle of chlorhexidine, it tensed. The muscles beneath its dark coat coiled like steel springs. "I have to clean it," Anna said softly, keeping her voice entirely level. "It's going to burn." She poured the antiseptic over the gaping wound. The creature let out a deafening, terrifying roar that rattled the teacups in the cupboards, its massive jaws snapping the air just inches from her face. Anna didn't flinch. She stood her ground, looking directly into those amber eyes. "Stop it," she commanded firmly, using the same tone she once used on belligerent ER patients. "I am helping you." The beast froze. It stared at her, blinked slowly, and lowered its massive head onto its paws, emitting a soft whine of surrender. For the next 2 hours, Anna operated. She used a curved needle and thick nylon sutures, methodically closing the deep laceration. The creature remained perfectly still, watching her hands work. When she finally finished, binding the wound with heavy gauze and medical tape, she collapsed into her rocking chair, completely exhausted. She filled a mixing bowl with water and slid it toward the animal. It lapped the water eagerly. Then, it looked at the heavy black collar around its neck, lifted a massive paw, and tapped the metal, looking at Anna. "You want that off?" she asked. She fetched a pair of heavy bolt cutters from her toolbox. As she knelt beside the beast, she noticed the engraving on the metal band. Property of Apex Biosolutions. Subject 8. Omega. Anna snapped the locking mechanism. The heavy collar clattered to the wooden floor. The beast shook its head, letting out a long sigh of relief before resting its chin on Anna's knee. For 3 days, the blizzard locked them inside. Anna and the beast, whom she had quietly nicknamed Shadow, formed a bizarre, silent companionship. Shadow was not a normal animal. He did not beg for food. He waited patiently. He did not pace. He patrolled the perimeter of the cabin, checking the windows like a sentry. When Anna slept, he curled up at the foot of her bed, a 200-pound wall of muscle and fur. On the morning of the 4th day, the storm broke, revealing a brilliant, blindingly clear, blue sky. The county snowplows were already rumbling down the distant highway. Anna was brewing coffee when Shadow suddenly bolted upright. The hair on his spine stood on end. He let out a low, menacing growl, backing away from the front window. A moment later, Anna heard the crunch of heavy tires. Through the frosted glass, she saw 2 matte black SUVs pulling into her driveway. 4 men stepped out. They weren't wearing sheriff's uniforms. They wore tactical winter gear, and they were heavily armed. Shadow looked at Anna, nudged her hand with his wet nose, and sprinted toward the back door. Anna opened it instantly. Without a backward glance, the beast vanished into the dense, snow-covered pine forest. A heavy knock rattled the front door. Anna opened it to find a tall, sharp-featured man with cold gray eyes. "Mrs. Higgins?" the man asked, flashing a laminated badge that read, "Owen Patrick, Director of Security. Apex Biosolutions. We're looking for a lost asset, a very dangerous wild animal. We tracked its GPS collar to your property before the signal died 3 days ago." "I haven't seen any animals," Anna lied smoothly, her hands steady. "The snow has been too thick." Patrick's eyes darted past her, scanning the living room. He noticed the faint bloodstains on the floorboards that Anna hadn't quite managed to scrub out, and the broken metallic collar resting on the kitchen counter. "Mrs. Higgins," Patrick said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. "That creature is a highly classified transgenic hybrid. It possesses cognitive capabilities far beyond a normal canine. It is a multi-million-dollar military prototype designed for search, track, and eliminate missions. It is not a pet. Where did it go?" "I told you," Anna said, crossing her arms. "I haven't seen anything." Patrick stared at her for a long, tense moment. Finally, he turned away. "If it comes back, it will kill you. Lock your doors." The men piled back into their SUVs and sped off. Anna never saw Owen Patrick again. For weeks, she watched the tree line, hoping to catch a glimpse of dark fur. But the woods remained silent. Shadow was gone. 4 years passed. Anna turned 76. The memory of the wounded beast became a surreal, quiet secret she kept entirely to herself. It was mid-January 2022. Another bitter winter had gripped the San Juan Mountains. Anna was sitting by the fire, knitting, listening to the local radio station. The music was suddenly interrupted by the sharp, grating tone of an emergency alert. "This is an Amber Alert," the broadcaster announced. "Police are searching for a 4-year-old girl, Lily Harper, abducted from a gas station in Durango 2 hours ago. The suspect is believed to be driving a rusted green Chevrolet pickup truck, heading north into the mountain passes. The child is wearing a pink winter coat. If you see this vehicle, do not approach." Anna sighed, saying a quiet prayer for the child. Durango was 50 miles south, but the mountain passes were treacherous. A kidnapping in this weather was a death sentence. Around 2 a.m., Anna was jolted awake by a sound that made her blood run cold. Thump, thump, scratch. It was coming from the heavy oak front door. Anna grabbed her Winchester, her hands shaking slightly. She crept through the dark cabin and peered through the peephole. The porch light illuminated the swirling snow. Sitting perfectly still on her front porch, covered in ice and frost, was a massive, charcoal gray beast. It was Shadow. He looked older, thicker, and covered in new scars, but there was no mistaking those amber eyes. But it was what lay between his massive front paws that made Anna drop her rifle. Anna threw open the door. Shadow backed away a few paces, giving her room. Lying on the wooden floorboards of the porch was a small, bundled figure. It was a little girl wearing a bright pink winter coat. She was wrapped securely in a filthy, torn sleeping bag. The child was unconscious, shivering violently, but her chest was rising and falling. Clutched in the beast's jaws was a torn piece of green metal, a rusted license plate. Anna fell to her knees, pulling the freezing child into her arms. "Oh, sweet heaven," she gasped. It was Lily Harper. She looked up at Shadow. The logic of the situation fractured in Anna's mind. For this to happen, this creature, this escaped military experiment, living wild in the brutal Rocky Mountains, had to have intercepted the kidnapper's truck on the mountain pass. He had to have recognized the child was in danger. He had to have disabled the threat, extracted the child without harming her. And then, he had carried a 30-pound child through miles of deep snow, navigating by memory to the exact GPS coordinates of a secluded cabin where, 4 years ago, a human being had shown him mercy. He didn't take her to a police station. He took her to a trauma nurse. He took her to Anna. Shadow stepped forward and gently nudged the little girl's frozen cheek with his nose. He let out a soft, low huff of air. Then, he looked at Anna, his amber eyes holding a profound, ancient depth. He dropped the rusted license plate at Anna's feet. "Thank you," Anna sobbed, tears freezing on her face. "Thank you, Shadow." The massive beast blinked slowly. He turned, his dark fur blending instantly into the howling blizzard, and disappeared into the night. Anna carried Lily inside, immediately beginning protocols for severe hypothermia. She wrapped the child in electric blankets, applying warm, dry compresses to her neck and chest. By the time the sun rose, Lily was conscious, sipping warm broth and watching cartoons on Anna's small television. When the local sheriff, a man named Benjamin Hayes, arrived at the cabin following Anna's frantic 911 call, he was completely bewildered. "Anna, how in God's name did this little girl get to your porch?" Sheriff Hayes asked, taking off his Stetson. "We found the suspect's green truck crashed in a ravine 10 miles from here. The door was torn entirely off its hinges. The suspect, well, let's just say he was severely mauled by what looks like a bear. He's in the ICU in Denver. But the tracks leading away from the truck, they weren't bear tracks, and they went straight through terrain a human couldn't cross." Anna looked at the rusted license plate sitting on her kitchen counter. She looked at the faint, 4-year-old blood stain on her floorboards, and she looked at little Lily Harper, safely curled up on the sofa. "The mountains are full of guardian angels." "Benjamin." Anna smiled softly, pouring the sheriff a cup of coffee. "Some of them just have sharper teeth than others." To this day, the rescue of Lily Harper remains an unsolved anomaly in Colorado state records. Apex Biosolutions officially filed for bankruptcy and dissolved in 2023, their classified projects buried in red tape. But residents of the San Juan Mountains sometimes whisper about a massive, charcoal-colored phantom that stalks the high ridges during the worst blizzards, a beast that hunts men with dark intentions, leaving behind nothing but footprints in the snow and justice in the dark.